Hey everybody, Chris here from the Southwest Center. Wanted to share another short video today as we continue to take a deep dive into this idea of building thinking classrooms and what institutional norms do we already have set up in our classrooms and how do we break some of those norms to be able to create this culture in this classroom where students feel empowered to think and to problem solve. And so, if you've read Peter's first book or familiar with his work at all, in chapter number 2, he spent some time talking about grouping. And so, we're going to talk about random groups today. Are they important? Why are they important? Do they matter at all? Because we get a lot of questions from teachers around this subject area. So we're going to talk about some of the things that Peter shares, maybe some strategies he talks about in some of his research, and also reflect on some of our own experiences as we've worked with teachers and students over the last few years in this area. So I think it's important on the front end that we acknowledge that our students many of the times come to us with already some socially defined roles. And we don't have to like that necessarily, but I think it's important we understand that. And so if we always allow our students to self-select in terms of the groups that they work with, then many times what Peter would tell you is those students are going to spend a lot of time adhering to those social roles, and they're actually going to escape the task that we're trying to give them. And so a byproduct actually of putting kids in random groups is not only do we potentially open the door for some of those social roles to be broken a little bit, but also we reduce some of that social stress. Because let's be truthful, sometimes students don't want to work with their friends all the time because maybe their friends don't always appreciate their ideas when they share them. Maybe there's some little quirks within their relationships that keep them from being able to share ideas and to be able to think and problem solve. And so when we put them in random groups and the students know that we're truly using random groups, sometimes we can reduce some social stress. And I think that's really important that we think about that. The other thing that I think is important to recognize is a skill that all of our kids need in today's world is being able to communicate and share with people maybe that they don't always talk to and always think alike and that they don't always share the same ideas with. So I think it's important that we put our kids in those roles because one of the things that we do in public school is we teach a lot of soft skills that our students are going to need for the world outside of our doors. And I can't think of a better skill than to be able to share ideas with their peers and to be able to share their thinking and to be able to listen to others and be able to collaborate in teams. I think that's a really important skill. So questions always come up, like how many people should be in a group? Do I put them in groups of 4 or 5? Do I put them in groups of 1 or 2, 2 or 3? What does that look like? And so Peter would tell you in his research that really the ideal size for a collaborative team is 3, unless you're working with really young kids. If we're talking about kindergarten, first and second graders, then his suggestion was we start with groups of 2, put them in pairs with the idea that we want to build up to where they can start working in groups of 3. Generally speaking, and I would tell you this from my experience as well, once you put people in groups of 4 or more, then the collaboration really is diminished because they tend to pair off into 2 groups of 2 or a group of 3 and one person's kind of on their own. It just tends to not lend itself well for good collaboration and communication with the team. The other thing that gets asked a lot is, how do I do this? How do I facilitate random groups? And we know there's a lot of software options out there. There's a lot of websites you can visit that'll put kids in random groups. I've seen teachers use a lot of great strategies. But an easy one that we use a lot, we model a lot here at the center, is just using playing cards. So if you notice, I've got a king that's taped to this white book here. And I just know that if I'm going to label my white books ace, king, queen, jack, 10, whatever, however many I need based on the size of my group. And then for every white book that I hang up, then I just take the other 3 remaining cards out of the deck and I use those to make my random groups. And I'm always mixing cards up and shuffling those. And that way I get to model for my students and my participants that we are truly randomizing groups, that this isn't something that I'm trying to manipulate to keep you away from your friends, because we know students are going to push back on that a little bit. We know that if we totally randomize groups, it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve for them. But Peter would also tell you within about 3 weeks that most of that pushback from students is going to be gone, that they're going to understand this is how we do business and that we're going to do random groups and that I just have as good odds today to be in my friend's group as I will tomorrow. And it becomes just part of the norms and the transitions that we use in our classroom. So hopefully that helps. We know there's still a lot more we could discuss with random groups. As always, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to us at the center. We would love to come and support your classroom in any way we can. Thanks.